Good evening. Welcome to tonight's story. Tonight's story is set in 1960s in England. David was a hard-working man in his early 40s. He was a plumber by trade and used to travel between cities for his job. He had a small work van and would commute on the M62 from his home in Yorkshire to Manchester on a regular basis. The M62 is a highway which was built in the 1960s, and this made commuting for David a lot easier, as it would take him a lot less time than driving on local roads, passing through the countrysides and villages. One evening, when David finished work in Manchester and decided to get back home using his usual highway route, he finished a lot later that evening, and it was nearly 11 p.m. It used to take David about an hour or an hour and a half on the highway, depending on the traffic, to get back home. David took the payment from his client, whose house he had been working on, closed his toolbox, and put that toolbox in the back of his van, and closed the back door of the van. He got into his van, sat there for a minute to catch his breath, and had the leftover sandwich from early in the day, and turned on his engine. David started to drive on quiet Manchester roads, and then joined the highway towards Yorkshire. He had his radio on and was humming to the British songs that were playing. After about 15 minutes into his journey, David noticed signs of roadworks up ahead were displayed at the side of the highway, and one by one, all the 3 lanes on the highway were closed, which meant all the traffic had to be diverted towards the local roads and villages. David was pretty annoyed at this, and he let out a loud sigh, as he knew that this journey would take him a few hours now, and it was nearly midnight. The traffic was moving pretty slow towards the countryside roads, and David just could not bear the thought of getting home any later than what he had in mind. So he pulled on the side of the road to his left. Took out his map and his torch and started reading through the map, finding a shortcut through the villages and countryside to get home quicker. He finally found a route which would get him home quicker. He turned his engine back on, rolled down his window, and started to wave at the car behind him to let him back into the traffic. He drove for about 5 minutes and then saw the road he was looking for, which turned right into a narrow country road with no lights. He saw the traffic and car lights fade behind him as he drove into complete darkness. The road was so narrow that if a car was to come from the other way, it would have been really difficult for both cars to pass each other, so David took extra care around the bends. He was driving for about 20 minutes when his radio stopped working due to no signal in this part of the countryside. He passed by some cottages in the village and then onto a long, dark road. All he could see around him were dark trees and fields. David was concentrating on the road, but at the same time he was really tired, and now started to yawn, and he was really sleepy. He stopped in the middle of the road and got his water bottle out, took some water from it and splashed a little on his face to wake him up. He rolled down his window and lit up a cigarette and started driving again. Not long after, up ahead, David saw a figure walking on the left side of the road. As he got closer, he realized it was a lady with long hair, black clothes, and heels, and she was walking as if she had a sprained right ankle. He then realized, as he got even closer, that she was pushing an old classic pram. David was terrified and speechless to see somebody pushing a pram in this extremely cold weather of December in the middle of nowhere. David was pretty confused if he should stop and offer help or carry on driving. He decided to drive away, but when he passed by the lady, he rolled down his left passenger front window to take a look at her, but he couldn't see her face. All he heard was the lady singing an old classic lullaby. To the baby in the pram. He couldn't hear the baby, but all he could hear was the lady singing. David passed by them very slowly. His engine started to stop. He then realized he was low on petrol, and his plan to fill up the tank at the motorway service went out of the window as the motorway was closed midway. David's van had now stopped in the middle of the road, and all he could see was a lady walking towards him in his left mirror. His heart was racing. She got to his front passenger side window on his left and started knocking at his window. David could not see the lady's face as she was looking straight ahead and was taller than his window. All he could see was her black hair, her black silk knitted gloves tapping on his window with her long dark black nails. David was never to be seen again. His van was found abandoned in the middle of the road the next evening. Not many drivers use that road. David could never have known this. But many years ago, in that same village, David was passing by that night. In old Victorian era, in old England, a woman who was possessed by a demonic entity in that village was killed along with her newborn baby by the local villagers at the hand of a local priest. And every year, on the same night that she was killed, the demonic entity who had possessed her takes the form of the lady and uses that same pram on the road and sings the same lullaby that lady used to sing to her baby. David just happened to be at the wrong place on the wrong night